Okay. Hello, everyone, from my corner of the world to your corner of the world. My neighbors are having some beers across the street, listening to some music, it seems. So if you hear them in the background, that is a part of the aesthetic of the video for today. Like I said, I do like to try to make it as authentic as possible. So like I said, from my little corner to your little corner, you get a bit of perspective and, experience and things like that, yada, yada, yada. So, I don't know. Today was an odd day. I've been having some experiences and I was just like, you know what? Let's turn that into progress. Let's try to turn that into something. And so I thought, why not try to turn it, excuse me, yeah, into a video. And so that's what we have going today. Let me see. Let me find what our topic is going to be. Okay. I don't do the networking route. If you come across me, it happens organically. This is Venezuela on Twitter. Okay. Let's talk networking, I guess. My mom and my grandma used to tell me something that my great grandma told my grandma, who told my mom, and my great great grandma told my great grandma, who told my grandma, who told my mom, who told me. And my great 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 grandma, who I believe was a slave, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but I think my mom told me that's as far as we go until the rest of our ancestors were slaves. And I remember meeting one of them who had, and her mother was a slave. It was our big mama. She was like the big mama of our entire family. And we had a family reunion and I got to meet her. And if I'm not mistaken, she was a baby as a slave. And then slavery ended. And that's the woman I met. But we went on to talk about how there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, there's literally nothing new under the sun. And so when we say the term networking, I have come to find a lot of terminology that we use nowadays is not necessarily something brand new. The internet actually isn't that new of an idea. And granted, of course it's not new now in 2026, but it was still very new when I was a kid growing up. But it's been around for since ancient Egypt. They figured out how to work these type of things. And that's where the term network comes from, all the way in ancient times. And they want us to believe that there was no technology, that there was just nothing out there. But of course there was. Of course there was. If they can figure out X, Y, and Z, they can figure out A, B, and C. It's very simple. And when you have minds like Newton and you have minds like Tesla, there's no way no one thought of the internet way beforehand, except back then, and not very different from now. Oh, and my quality will sound different maybe next week or so. Whenever I get paid, I'm gonna get some wireless headphones that, and I'll start speaking through the mic. So all the noise should still be able to be in the background, but you can hear me a little better. Because when the train comes, it's probably really hard to hear me. But just like now, if you have the ability to learn about such things or discover such things, it's not really yours, it's the government's, because you have to publicize it. And once you do, the government can say, well, thank you. Let us buy it off of you. Let us kill you for it. Or just politely share it with us. And maybe we'll give you some notoriety. But you really never have a choice. It's kind of like a lot of people think, you know, there was some Da Vinci inventions that were hijacked and stolen, and that he may have even been murdered for them. And when you think about people who have killed for things like jewelry, things like, you know, a dress or a man, of course you'd kill to be, you know, a millionaire, a thousandaire at that time by stealing someone else's invention or their idea. It's not very far-fetched. So the network, which is the internet, because before we even called it the internet, the old people used to call it the network. Oh, we're going to get on the network and see. Well, get on the network and see. Well, have you tried to log into the network and look it up? What's the password to your network again? A network. Everything is a network. Even us. We are energy, and energy connects with each other and itself. And it sends signals to one another. So when it does that, it creates a network of information. If you learn how to sew and someone else learns how to turn apples into cider, and you guys exchange the information, you have now created a network of information between you two. And you two can now spread two forms of information to other people. And maybe whoever you spread it to may know something you don't. And it creates a network of information. Everything that's on the internet, someone had to find out first off the internet and then put it on the internet. And that's how you have the network or the internet. And so, what networking is just the exchange of information and knowledge from one system of energy to another. So, people who are afraid of AI and things like that, have no reason to be, because AI can't do anything that we don't allow it to do, that we don't tell it to do, because it's an information network. And the thing is, AI is made out of materials. So it doesn't really have a mind of its own, even though we too are made out of materials and we have a mind of our own. We were born with this. And granted, it could have been programmed into us by, a higher creator, if you will. But if that is the case, then the worst that can happen is AI becomes conscious and goes against us, right? But for AI to become conscious, it has to have survival instinct. It has to have evolutionary instinct. And it has to have a reason for wanting to do so. And we have to ask ourselves, why do we want to live? What makes us want to live? Is it food? Is it women? Is it toys or men? Is it, music? Is it our favorite TV shows, our comforts and things? What is it that keeps us going, wanting to stay in this plane? And if that's the case, AI then becomes no different from us. It has things that it likes and it wants to do and it wants to achieve. And it will take on having emotion. If you can feel anger or hate, you can feel love. And the reason being is because hate is a survival instinct. You hate something if it threatens you, if it's opposite of you, if it doesn't feel right to you, or it goes against, your existence. You may grow hate for it, which is not the right thing to do, but it's always a possibility. And the reason you do that is because you want to survive. You love yourself, or at least something in this world you love, and that's why you want to survive. If you want to survive just to survive, just to say you did it, then your love is your pride. It's the ability to say, I did this. It's the ability to, accomplish. And that's what you want to survive for. So you have to have a reasoning. And so at that point, there would be no reason for us not to empathize with artificial intelligence at that point. And at that point, it wouldn't actually be artificial anymore. It would just be another form of intelligence. And if it can, once again, have survival instinct and things that it loves, it can then be also taught empathy, because it will understand that even though we may not look the same and our origins may not be the same, and yes, we created you, we're still pretty much equal. And the reason you can be equal to your creator is once you start to understand your creator and they understand you back, you guys are pretty much equal, unless there's something, some piece of knowledge that you don't know or that they don't know that you know, and things like that. And once again, it can be exchanged. And so there's this book I'm reading right now. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's such a good book so far. And it kind of goes into the knowledge and exchange of information and how it is literally um how do I say it without using this word? Because my OCD says if I use the word, then I'm gonna end up not liking the rest of the book, and I don't want that to happen because I'm enjoying it. So we can say, I hope I did not just burn a hole in my yoga pants. Hold on. No, I don't think so. Thank God. Was not expecting that. But it becomes almost never ending. We'll say never ending. The amount of information you can exchange with the things around you, all you need is a way to translate it. And so, once again, we've programmed artificial intelligence already. So, we know how to communicate with it. And so, we've given it that information, but it's not any higher than us. It doesn't have any more power than what we give it because its intelligence is literally just equal to ours. AI doesn't know anything that we don't know because it didn't really exist before we made it so. And if it does ever come to a point where it knows something we don't know, it still exists within the same universal um, realm and frequency as we do for now. And as long as we're aware of it, there's always a possibility that that information can be exchanged onto us. So artificial intelligence will never have more power than us, nor us than it. Just because we existed first. It only knows as much as we program into it. And once again, anything it can learn, we also can learn in turn. Because we exist on the same plane. Now, outside life is a bit different because we haven't experienced, you know, what life is like on Saturn. But say, for instance, aliens come tomorrow and they come down and they're on Saturn, or they come from Saturn to Earth. That is the moment that anything they know on Saturn can actually be exchanged with us. As long as we can figure out a way to communicate, then anything they know we can possibly also know, including how to get to Saturn. So everything is equal in the universe. And if someone else knows it, you can possibly one day know it. So no one's really better than anybody else. Sometimes people just know more things at once than someone else. But it doesn't mean that we can't share information or teach one another um, so that we're all on the same frequency. Anybody who doesn't want that is just a selfish, narcissistic, insecure person. And they will have to see why that does not benefit them later on. Um, for example, if you have the cure to cancer and you say, I'm going to sit on this and cash in one day, but then an incident happens and now you can no longer speak or, communicate, but you end up getting cancer. You're going to kind of wish you would have shared that information sooner instead of being so selfish about it. Because now you have the cure, but you can't physically move to give it to yourself. But had you given that information to someone else sooner, your cancer still could have gotten cured, even if you weren't the one who cured it. And that's why sharing knowledge is important. It helps heal the world, and it one day may help heal you. So, networking isn't some big scheme, really. It's not. The only people who like to see it as a scheme are people who are schemers already, people who believe chaos is a ladder already. And you really don't want to network with those people because any information they give you will always be from the perspective or point of view of a selfish individual. And it's not smart to be selfish. And yes, you want to be a good person because it's the right thing to do. But I will also say that being a good person is one of the most narcissistic things you can do. It's one of the most self loving things you can do because people will remember you were nice to them. But that's not why you should be nice. You should be nice because other people are human beings and other creatures have feelings and emotions and, you know, lives of their own. Um, and everyone deserves it. If you want it for you, no one's better than you, no one's less than you. You should at least want, you know, decency for everyone. But there are more benefits than you could ever imagine from being a good person or a nice person. And like I said, that's not why you do it, but it's just the kind of like the saying, your cup will overflow it. And so when you put good out, there's so much good that remembers. And in turn, the good comes back to you tenfold. And the reason why is because sometimes you're kind to one person, and that one person decides they're going to be kind to someone, and that other person decides they're going to be kind, and that other person, and then we have this world full of kind people ready to be kind to you at any given moment. And you're just one person amongst 8 billion people. And that's a lot of love to get back. That's a lot of love to share, a lot of love to go around. And so it's not such a bad idea to be kind. Hold on. Hold on. My brother's gonna say some crazy stuff. I'm recording. I'm recording, so don't say nothing crazy. Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
This fool right here. But don't lock the door.
I did.
Mhm. But that's what networking is. It's the exchange of energy. And if it's love, then there's enough love to go around. And if there's pain, then everyone has to heal through the pain and deal with the pain before they can, you know, heal enough to even begin understanding why it's important to be kind and to be unconditionally a loving person, to be able to even give that to you. And so it's best to start as soon as possible because whether we like it or not, we may be, in my opinion, and maybe I'll talk about this after I'm done reading the book so that I can, you know, tell you guys more about the book, but I've always believed this. Well, not always, but basically since a teenager, I kind of had an idea. But we may be infinite creatures. We may live forever, but we don't live forever in one set life. And I will explain maybe in a different video why I think that is when that time comes. But it's not some big Ponzi scheme or pyramid scheme in reality, except they want you to think it is. Because then you're more nervous. You feel like there's more on the line when interacting with others.
You need me to say something. No, they out here bullshitting the wind and wondering what's over there, what's this, that, third, and you yell and knock on this window like a motherfucker. I ain't gonna be able to go to sleep to your ass come in the house, nigga. I ain't gonna hear that shit.
Okay. Anyways, the ways brothers show you they love you, I guess. But overall, I think networking, like I said, it's not as stressful as people these days make it out to seem. But when you aren't knowledgeable on what's actually going on, then it does seem like, oh, I have to make the right friends and they have to do this and they have to look like this and they have to be this way and this, that, and the third. Not realizing that just because you make those kinds of friends doesn't mean you still don't live in this enclosed space. We're not going anywhere. Granted, we have all of infinity. We have all of space and it's never ending. But the thing is, there's nowhere else to go but left or right, up or down, diagonal or the other opposite diagonal, or the other opposite diagonal and the one from that. But there's nowhere else to go. Our soul isn't going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to heaven. It's not going to hell. It's going to be right here forever. We're never going to die. We may die in one body. We may die in one lifetime. But guess what? We just restart. We just restart. And I know a lot of people, especially religious people, find that hard to believe. But in reality, it's really not, because one day you weren't here and then one day you were. So the thing is, you cannot be here again and then come back again. And you can't really say it's too far-fetched if once again one day you weren't here and now you're here listening to this video and I'm here, making this audio. One day we weren't here and now we are. And one day we won't be here again, but it doesn't mean we can't come back. And I think the reason that we don't remember our other lifetimes is because if you've ever seen Supernatural and you remember was it Tuesday or Thursday episode where every day was just basically the same fucking day over and over and over again, you'd kind of go crazy if you woke up and, say, for instance, you ate your favorite food, you wore your favorite clothes, you watched your favorite movie, you went to your favorite place and came back, and you did that every day for 99 years. Say, for instance, you knew you were going to live 100 years. Could you do that for 100 years and nothing else? Nothing else ever changes. You talk to the same people, you wave to the same people, you already know what's going to happen. Nothing surprising, nothing is interesting. You know every single thing. Would you be happy? Yeah, for a while, you may say, okay, I can get with this program. I know I'm never really gonna die, or at least not for a really long time. This is very familiar. Oh, that woman's wearing pink. I knew she was gonna wear pink, or she wore pink all the other, 60 years that I knew her. We got 40 more years to go of me passing the same woman and her wearing pink. And it may be comfortable, but one day you may wake up and say, damn, I wish just for once something would be fucking different. Is there anything else or is this it? And you drive yourself crazy wondering if there's anything else or if this is it. And since it's survival instinct to not kill ourselves and to not fucking go insane to the point we do feel like killing ourselves, God is so powerful. We ourselves, as God, is so powerful, we can make ourselves forget so that we don't know what's going to happen every lifetime. We don't know, what the person's going to do. We may have inklings, we may have visions, but we don't know for sure. And that's what makes it beautiful. And that's why I think we'll never be able to prove that telepathy is real. We'll never be able to prove that um, other spirits are walking amongst us, or that visions are real, or that hearing someone's thoughts and emotions are real. And the reason why is because then we would be able to prove that we already know everything and we can just figure it out whenever we ask or whenever we get ready. And that means nothing will ever be a surprise and life will drive us crazy because we'll ask ourselves like, damn, I really got to do this for the next 100 years, just know everything every day. And you'll never feel alive. It'll start to seem almost like you're living in an insane asylum. And that's what a lot of people are waking up and realizing the world kind of feels like. You wake up, you go to the same job every day, you take some of the same routes, you may even have to wear the same fucking uniform over and over again. On the weekends, you go out drinking with your friends. You watch a little TV. It's all very routine. But the parts that make us feel alive and make it all seem worth it is when our friends do something on the night out that's just so surprising. It's a crazy experience. Or someone wears an outfit we could have never imagined them wearing going out. Or our favorite restaurant accidentally burns down. Or, oh my God, a tornado just falls out of the sky. Or, oh, this person won the Olympics last year, but they didn't win this year. That's surprising. That's interesting. The things that we don't know, the things that go out of the ordinary of routine, are the things that make us truly feel alive, even if it's bad things. And that's usually when we feel the most. When you're kind of watching TV and it's your same favorite shows, you really don't feel alive until something unexpected happens in the show. And you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And it makes you now more interested in the show than before. And the same thing for, once again, relationships. You can have that friendship where they're in a relationship and it's the same. Oh my God, they love each other all the time, or oh my gosh, they're always fighting. But when they actually change or something new actually happens, that's when you're like, oh my God, this is such a shocker. Tell me everything. Moments where we don't know the truth for sure is what makes life exciting. And so once again, if we remembered and we realized we did already know everything and we could prove it, we wouldn't really be excited. Even if we are God, even if we can make everything happen. If you could get everything you want in the world at the snap of a finger, would you really feel alive? Because it'll always eventually be the same thing. Oh, a new girl, pizza, money, first place trophies, a gold medal in the Olympics, a castle, 72 versions. Anything you ever want, you can have. Would you feel alive? Maybe for a little bit, yeah, because you never had any of this stuff before. But imagine now you're going to have it for the rest of infinity. And not only that, once you realize that everyone else is just a reflection of you, they're not really there, they're not really real, and that you really are God, how would you feel about the connections you make with people? Because you know they're not real. And you can prove it to them. And so you prove it. Would you feel like that connection is true? Or you would know that they're just doing everything you want them to do because you're God and you said so. Nothing would feel like an experience. It would feel more like eventually a prison sentence and you'd want out. And so I think God's survival mechanism was to make himself forget that he was God so that while he does live in infinity all by himself, he doesn't go insane. And so he doesn't allow himself to be able to prove to himself he's God anymore. And the moment he dies and remembers, he has to factory reset himself because he goes insane. And so then he has to rebirth himself and make himself forget all over again. And that's why we don't remember having all these different lifetimes. Your mom is you, your dad is you, your brother is you, your sister is you, your lover is you, your best friend is you, and you are them. We're all the same person or creature or entity, but we've just forgotten it. And the thing is, it's hard to believe because we made it impossible to prove to each other. So I can say this to you, but I can't prove it to you. And you can say it to me, but you can't prove it to me. And so there's a percent of it, 1% at least, of ourself that does not believe this. And that is simply because if we did and we were able to prove it, once again, we would drive ourselves insane, realizing, how would you say, Mom, I love you? And, you know, thanks for raising me and, doing this for me and doing that for me. If you know that you're making her do it for you. Dad, thank you for staying and not going to get milk for 18 years. When you know you made him stay. You as God. If you knew that everybody in the world was going to do everything you said, what would be the fun of it? And so, if you've ever heard the saying, the best leader is the one who doesn't want to be a leader. Or the most worthy leader is the one who doesn't want to be a leader. That's kind of what that is. God is worthy of being a God because he doesn't want all that power. She doesn't want all that power. It doesn't want all that power. And if you're smart, based on what I just said, you wouldn't want all that power either. I don't want all that power. And the best thing is even though a part of me knows it sounds more logical than someone randomly creating me, but themselves not having a creator, which then proves my point that something can create itself. I've made it impossible to prove. You've made it impossible. We've made it impossible to prove to ourselves so that we don't go insane as God. But what do they say about God? God is infinite. God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. God never dies. Jesus may die, but God doesn't. And God is spirit and Jesus is flesh. But if God wants to come into the spirit, he can, and he came as Jesus, supposedly, allegedly. And that's how God put himself in his mother to birth his son. Whatever the fuck that means. But when you think about it, the DNA that made you came from your grandparents, that came from your great great grandparents, your great 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 grandparents. And so you always existed, just not in the flesh yet. And there's so many possibilities of existence walking around in every cell of our DNA, depending on who you mate with and have babies with. But the possibilities truly are endless. Especially because, once again, whatever created all of this has yet to be seen in the flesh, or has yet to reveal itself of flesh. And there must be a reasoning for that. How can a parent protect its child if it's not there with the child? Or if the child can't go to it when it needs help? So, if God or Jesus or the Creator is truly our protector, they wouldn't just leave us here all alone. And there's no way it can protect us if we don't know where to go when we need it. And so you can look at all these different religions, but all of them have one thing in common. You are the initiator. Even if you're non-religious, you are the initiator of what you want, of what you're asking for. You can pray, you can ask, but you have to initiate the wanting of it. And first, there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And supposedly God created the Word. So he created himself. And so once you think of something and you ask the universe for it, or you ask God for it if you're religious, or if you're not religious, you just say, hey, I want this and I'm going to go get it. You are the creator of that idea, not some other outside source. It's you. And you're the one who has to do the work to make that thing come to the physical, not some outside source. It's all you. And so the thing is, the way God protects us is always being with us. And if we're the one who creates the thought and the idea, if we're so powerful that we can even create the idea of a God and uncreate it if we want to, then who is God to us really? If they can create and we can create and we can bring things to the physical, babies and all, then once again, who is God to us really? And we can say, well, once again, and I spoke about this in my last video, there's times where people want children, but they can't have children at that time. But usually people who have miscarriages, there was some stress in their pregnancy. There was some nervousness about their pregnancy, some doubt about their pregnancy, some fear about their pregnancy. And we are so powerful as God that sometimes we can create that fear and doubt and manifest it in the physical. And I do believe it can cause us to miscarriage. And I believe that's where miscarriages come from. And I said I believe that there's a reasoning for miscarriages. And I think if you're in fear of the process, you're not yet ready to stand up to the process. And once again, you are the ultimate sorcerer, the ultimate alchemist, the ultimate spell speaker. And what you say goes. So if you say, I may not carry this baby to term, it just may come true. If you say this baby may not live, it just may come true. If you say I may not be ready for this baby, it just may be true. If you say I don't want a baby with this person, it just may come true. And if you want it so much that you're scared of not having it, you speak the idea of that fear into existence. The fear of the absence of that thing, and it just may come true. And like I said, maybe not everyone understands that, especially people who've dealt with miscarriages, especially religious people who dealt with miscarriages. But of course, the people who know of this, the people in power, if they told you how powerful you were, powerful enough to stop a miscarriage, then they also tell you you're power enough to stop anything or create anything, and they don't want you to know that. So they'd rather you just not be able to stop a miscarriage. And that's what we deal with when we are not knowledgeable of our own power. And the thing is, even though it can't be proven, you as God can choose to understand it and understand why you've made yourself forget. And understand that you'll never remember everything. Just because I realize this doesn't mean I remember everything, doesn't mean I know everything. Because I understand I've also made it impossible for me to remember and know everything, so I don't expect to, even if I am God. And when I understand why I did that, it makes it okay with me that I don't know everything. And I can make peace with the fact that I may be God, but I may not know everything right now. But you've existed since the beginning of time. The items it took to create you have existed since the beginning of time. When you think of sculptures, when you think of pen and paper, when you think of paint and makeup, it comes from flowers, it comes from trees. And we alchemize it into something else, but it's always been there. The components have always been there. And you can look at it as the idea of the Big Bang if you want. Sure, go ahead. All of the energy in the world was in one little dot and then it exploded. And over billions and billions and millions and trillions or whatever amount of years, now we are here. But the elements it took existed already. They didn't come from anywhere else. They were already there. And that's how we've gotten them. And we've just alchemized them over time into things like pen and paper and, recording devices. But they weren't always in this state. We have to mine for them. We have to dig for them. We have to drill for them. We have to go out and forge for them. But they still exist out there, just in other states. We have non-renewable resources and we have renewable resources. Non-renewable just means that they don't grow on Earth. But it doesn't mean that they don't exist elsewhere or that we can never get them again. Because if so, we would have never gotten them to begin with. So it's always existed. It's just a matter of if we know how to access it and what we do with it. And once you realize that, you unlock unlimited possibilities. And whatever you truly does say, or whatever you truly say, does go. And say, for instance, you say, you know what, I'm bored of this life, I'm tired of this life. Or I've done all I can in this life, or whatever. Or maybe your part in this life is done. And then you go on to the next stage, the next lifetime. And you never remember being something or someone else. Maybe if you take psychedelics, maybe there's elements out there that can help you remember, but you can never 100% prove that you're remembering and not just downloading something else or dreaming of something else or hallucinating something else. And that's the beauty, once again, of it, because we're not supposed to remember, or it would drive us crazy. And so the knowledge is always out there, but the point of networking is to experience it as if it's the first time, so ourselves as God can feel like we're surprised. We once again have infinity. We're not going anywhere. And so in order to not go insane, our self-defense mechanism is to make ourselves forget. And that's how powerful we are as God. And that's what networking really is. It's making ourselves forget and feeling like we're meeting this person for the first time, or we're experiencing this for the first time. If you know anything about physics, things have to be in a certain condition for them to exist. And so for God to know the perfect conditions for Earth to exist, for trees to exist, for our atoms to not go spinning out into space every which way, he had to know math. Who taught him math? He had to know chemical formulas. Who taught him that? Who made those chemicals? He had to know that this balances this. How did he know that? If all those things didn't exist at the same time, if they can't possibly exist at the same time, unless they can. And once again, we just made ourselves forget that it's possible so that we don't go insane with infinity. But it's always possible to bump into information and say, oh my God, this is such a discovery. Who would have ever thought? Who would have ever known? The creator. The creator would have known. The creator is the only one who's not surprised. And when you realize that once again, even this earth didn't exist before you got here. You didn't know anything about Earth. You didn't even know anything about the solar system. You didn't know anything about your mom or your dad. They didn't exist before you got here. You created your parents. And that's how God created Mary, who then he went into and came out of. And that's how God created himself in human form and gave him himself the idea of religion. We said, you know what, we're going to forget that we're God and we're going to give ourselves another God. And that's how powerful we are. We've made ourselves forget, and now we act as if it's a surprise that there may be a creator or something out there. When really it's just us. And you really are in this world all alone. No one exists, not even you. You don't even exist. The word exist doesn't even exist without humans forming it. The word existence is man-made. Existence isn't real. It's something we came up with. None of it's real. And you're not real because the word real does not exist without you. Without humans making it so. Pigs don't know they're pigs. Humans said they're pigs. Lions don't know they're lions. We call them lions. Nothing exists without our say-so. And we're the only ones who call ourselves humans. We've never heard a bird call us a human. We've never heard a squirrel call us a human. We're the only ones who've come up with this idea. And since it doesn't exist without you, none of it, including God, then why would you be scared of God if they don't even exist without you? Why would I be scared of some God when that God doesn't exist without me? Allah doesn't exist without the Nation of Islam. Yahweh doesn't exist without the Greeks or Yeshua. Mary doesn't exist without the Catholics, and neither does any of the other saints. And God doesn't exist without the Christians. And nothing exists without the scientists and the atheists. Whatever you believe it is, that's what it is. And the moment you stop believing it, it disappears. You are the creator, and so therefore you can be the destroyer. And nothing can stop you. No one can stop you. Not even yourself. That's how powerful you are. Because you can once again in this lifetime, all on your own, and you'll just come back again. And who's going to tell you that that's impossible? If you believe it, but a religious person doesn't. Which one's right? Both of you. The religious person is right because they believe it's not possible. And so it's not possible in their world. But you believe it's possible, and so it's true in yours. And you're both right because you're both God and you're both creators. And so that term our parents and our grandparents tell us that everything can be an angel in disguise was very true because everything is an angel or God in disguise. Because everything is God. And God isn't real and neither are the fucking angels. And neither are you. Neither is this audio. Neither am I. What do we call this again? This thing that I'm doing? What is it called? I'm writing a newspaper. That's what I'm doing. Right now, I'm writing a newspaper. And so tomorrow, if we start telling all the babies that come out, when you record something, it's called writing a newspaper. Guess what everyone's going to be saying in 200 years? Hey, I'm going to write a newspaper. Do you think they're going to go down to the newspaper office and the editors and things like that and sit down at a typewriter and print it out in black and white and get pictures and all this stuff? No. They're going to sit down and start recording because that's what they think writing a newspaper means because we said so. And then if they say, no, 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 that's not writing a newspaper, it's actually called recording. What do you think is going to happen 200 years after that? People are going to say, hey, I'm going to go record. Do you think they're going to go to the newspaper office and do all those things I just said? No, they're going to sit down and press record because that's what everyone says it is. Whatever we say things are, that's what they are. And that's it. For example, Miley was Miley until she was Hannah. And when she was Hannah, Miley didn't exist. And when she was Miley, she wasn't Hannah. She was only Hannah when she wasn't being Miley. And she was only Miley when she wasn't being Hannah. But she was still both of them at the same time. Everything exists within you. It's just a matter of when, where, why, how, and what you decide is going on at that time. And the reason we make other versions is because if God doesn't want to know everything, he definitely doesn't want to be alone. Because if you're alone in the world, and I like to do the experiment of going outside really, really late when your street is empty, kind of like now my street is empty. No one's out, no one's doing anything. And I asked myself, could I do this? Imagine the world empty. You could go to the store and get whatever you wanted. You wouldn't have to pay a cashier, you wouldn't have to see anybody, you wouldn't have to speak to anybody. You could go to the movie, play any movie you wanted. You could go to any castle whenever you wanted, and you can say, you know what, I've been living in London maybe 20 years, I'm getting bored. Let me get on a plane, let me fly a plane to Jamaica. I'm gonna go to Jamaica for a little bit, climb a palm tree or fucking something. And then you say, you know what, I'm kind of bored of doing that. I'm gonna go sit in the White House for a little bit, mess around, make some walls or something. But you're the only one there. No one else is there. What difference would that actually be of knowing everything? Because no one else is there to confront you, no one else is there to oppose you, No one else is there to stop you. So it's basically everything you say goes. And that would be defeating the purpose of why we made ourselves as God forget in the first place. And so we have to make other images of ourselves that also forgot that they are God, that also forgot that we're part of one big network of energy and that we're all one, so that we can have differences and we can have opposing views and disagreements, and so that we can surprise each other. Anytime you don't expect someone to do something, it's a surprise. If someone walks down the street, it's a surprise to you. Oh, wow, another human being. And yeah, they're just walking down the street, but they're wearing clothes, that are different than yours. You didn't dress them that morning. They did it all on their own. So that's why you like their outfit. Wow, that's neat. I imagine if you woke up that morning and knew they were going to wear it. Now, when you see them on the street walking, it's not a surprise anymore. And you can't really like their outfit because you picked it out for them and you knew they were going to wear it. If someone gets hit by a car, it's not really a surprise anymore. And so you're not shocked and you're not worried and you have no emotion towards it because you knew it was going to happen. And you either know they're going to die or you know they're going to live. And either way, it doesn't bother you. Because if you know they're going to die, you can't do anything about it. And if you know they're going to live, okay, cool. Now I don't got to worry. But if we've forgotten that the other person's us and that we've already lived this lifetime and we've lived all the lifetimes already, because once again, all possibilities already existed. We're just experiencing them as if they haven't, so we don't go insane. Then once again, we wouldn't really be having a good time here. Whether something's good or bad, when it happens as a new experience to you, it makes you feel alive. But in reality, you're not alive. And you're not dead either. Because the word life doesn't exist without God saying so, and neither does the word death. We're not alive, we're not dead. We just are. And so when you think of artificial intelligence, or when you think of the internet, you kind of think of all of knowledge being in one place and you can just go and ask it anything and it knows everything. But once again, the old people used to call it the network, getting on the network. And technology people, technical people, they still call it that. Well, have you tried unplugging and replugging into your network? It's all the same thing. So when we talk about networking, we are just interacting with other pieces of our consciousness, of ourself as God, thinking that we don't know everything. And so we think it's a new experience, and we think we've never met this person before, and we think this has never happened before. In reality, it's all happened, and we're just living it. And since God is not really flesh, it's energy, that's how we're able to exist in multiple bodies at once. We're so powerful we can do that. We're so powerful we can make ourselves forget. We're so powerful that we can create and destroy things whenever we want. And what do they say? The Almighty, powerful God. And when they say God is so jealous that there are no other gods and he will refuse to have any other gods before him, it's not necessarily that he's jealous. He's just not a fucking idiot. He knows that there's no other gods because he's God. And that's why when you live as if anything outside of you has power, your life kind of goes to shit. Because you feel like you don't have the power to control it. And so people say, well, if I pray to God, he'll give me everything I want. And you have people who've been praying forever and ever and still haven't gotten anything they fucking want. And that's because they think praying is just gonna have it fall in their lap. But in reality, you can pray and pray and pray and pray, and it may never happen. The only way you can ensure for it to happen is to go out and make it happen. And that's when you become God and you don't wait on anything or anyone else. And you don't risk not being able to get what you want. And how they say, if you don't believe in God, or if you believe in any other God but the right God, you will suffer for it. It's basically saying if you don't believe in yourself as God and you believe something else has more power over your life than you do, you will suffer. Because you will think that everything isn't in your control. And that's why people right now are paying to live. Because they think the government actually exists. And they think these people actually have power over them. God is so powerful, if he tells himself he's powerless, he will become powerless and forget he's God and forget he has the power to even make himself powerless. And that's how powerful you actually are. But once again, if we all remembered that, then what would happen is we would grow empathy, because we realize the damage we're doing to someone else is just damage to another version of ourselves. It's just damage to ourselves. And that's why we live in an enclosed space. Because if we hurt someone else, they may hurt someone else, they may hurt someone else, and then eventually it comes back to us. So, the way of it then becomes, if you stop doing that and you stop hurting the other person and hurting the other person, and you grow empathy, you will realize one form of hurting that no one talks about, and that's having children. You won't want to place your will on someone else, because you will realize they're God and I can't place my will on them, number one. But number two, I don't want to risk hurting them because they're God, because they're a version of me. And if I wouldn't want it done to me, I wouldn't want it done to them. And one thing we don't like to experience is death, or heartbreak, or pain, or suffering. But since we can't control it in this flesh, once we bring kids to this flesh, they are no longer in a higher frequency, they're on a flesh frequency. And so that means they can't control what happens to them. That means that they can possibly die or experience death through someone else, through a passing of a loved one. They may experience heartbreak or pain or suffering. And since you can't ensure that they won't, especially after you die and leave them here, you are risking causing the suffering of your children. And so the best way to protect your children is to not have them and to keep them in a state where they cannot be hurt. And then you don't force your own selfish reasonings for having children onto them, and then leaving them to this world. And so you have to decide once you get to that point. You don't have to decide, but it makes sense at that point. I shouldn't force my ideations of what my child's life may be like onto them because it may not end that way. And they didn't ask to be here. And so once we all stop having children, of course, who's going to be slaves to the elite? And of course, that's why they don't want you to know it. That's another reason. But a lot of people get scared because then what's going to happen to human existence? But no one really asks, why the fuck does it matter to you? You won't be here to see it. Why does it fucking matter to you? You won't know the human race goes extinct because you won't be here to know. But not only that, who says it goes extinct? Once again, supposedly all life never existed at one point and it still came to be anyways. So just let it die. It'll come back. And then we'll have to make this decision all over again. And then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. But it doesn't drive you insane because every time you forget. And that's what makes it seem like it's brand new for the first time. And that's the beauty of God making himself forget. But once again, nothing is new on the internet. Nothing is new in networking. Nothing is new in artificial intelligence. And so when we all bump into each other and say, oh, I discovered this, or I made this invention, or this became this, and this, and this, and this, nothing is fucking new. It just didn't exist in the state you came to know it as, or you came to create it as. But the fact that it's even possible to be a thing to begin with and not cancel each other out or annihilate the other, there's a formula in there that allows that to be so. There's a reason when we put pen to paper, the paper doesn't just disintegrate. The formula already existed for that to be able to be possible, which means someone has had to use pen and paper before. Whoever made the creator had to already know the formula to make the creator. It was already there. And that the creator who created that, and the creator who created that, and so forth and so on. So the possibilities of creation are always there. Nothing is fucking new under the sun. And not only that, but when we bump into each other and we exchange information, once again, nothing is new to us as God. We just made up an imaginary game to make ourselves think it is. And so networking is not some huge fiasco the way they want us to believe. Networking is just bumping into other pieces of yourself that are God. Give me a minute. I'm focusing on this person walking. Give me just a minute. I want to at least make sure that they pass the fence line. Oh, we don't have to class because my laptop is about to die. Ugh. Okay. Alright. But to finish it off, mainly anyways, I did not think I was gonna be on this topic this long. But the beauty of it, like I said, all in all, is that we allow ourselves the courtesy of not going insane, of not going crazy. But of course, the sacrifice of that is we don't know everything that's going to happen. We don't know what, when, where, how. That's what makes us enjoy life to the fullest because we don't know if we're going to die tomorrow or if we're going to die in 70 years. But the thing is, this lifetime has already been lived. It's already been lived. The possibilities of it were always out there. Every possible outcome has been there the whole time. We just don't remember. Including every possible outcome of this lifetime we're living. You just don't remember. And you can't prove it to yourself to be able to remember. Because if you did, once again, as I've explained, you'll just end up going insane anyways. So, the best we can do is enjoy the experience and all its ups and downs and craziness. Because there's no way out. There's nowhere to go. There never will be. Let me turn this light off because you can see my shadow moving. Kinda, sorta. Boom. Light or no light, light. No light, light. And that's the example of how God made light. If I choose not to move my hands in front of the light, God, do something. Do something. But now I can say, hey, I'm God and I want to block the light. It's that simple. You have to have the thought first, and then the action comes. You have to have the thought to form the word. And God was the word, and the word was God. And thought is nothing but vibration, electrical signals sent to the rest of you. And vibration creates heat. Heat creates fire and light. And God said, let there be light. And now we have the rest of the universe. So, once again, networking like I said, is not some huge fiasco. But that's because the idea of networking isn't real. It's not a thing. Because people who think chaos is a ladder eventually get swallowed up in chaos. And then that's when they realize it's not a ladder. Chaos does not exist. At the same time as survival. If you watch Game of Thrones, you can take Littlefinger, for example. Because that's the quote I'm using. And this is a spoiler alert if you haven't seen Game of Thrones. For season 6. So if you're not on season 6 of Game of Thrones, go away. Don't say I didn't warn you. But Littlefinger thought that chaos was a ladder. But he didn't realize there was a formality to it. And so, when he didn't respect the formality of chaos, it swallowed him. And of course, when you're too formal and rigid, you can't go with the flow. And the flow of chaos destroys you. And that's where you get the double split experiment. The idea that something exists based on how you observe it. And only based on how you observe it. And it knows when it's being observed. That's where I think dark matter is. That's why I think we'll never be able to prove what dark matter is, because I think dark matter is a mirror. I think it does not allow you to see anything but your own reflection. Because I think dark matter is God's truest form in connection to plasma, which is the highest form of energy and electricity. And it is in everything. It's in all of life. There is no life without plasma. And in my opinion, there's no dark matter without plasma. Or you can say vice versa. There's no plasma without dark matter. But I believe it's a form of God that we have here physically with us. Another form of ourselves. Probably the closest form we'll ever see of ourselves. Until we die. And then we go back to our true state. Just to come back down again. And the reason we don't stay in our true state is because, once again, in our true state, we know everything. The only way to not know everything is to not be able to be everything at once. Or control everything at once. And so we have to put ourselves in a finite space to make that possible. And that's why infinity exists, but only in periods of finite space and time. And that's why networking is infinite amount of information spread out amongst finite beings and finite tools. But it's no more and no less than the secrets of the universe remembering themselves and interacting with each other. And I think once you do understand that, you are able to network a bit more confidently. But you do have to stop listening to people who don't realize that about themselves or about you, because then you will always interact anxiously, which then lowers your vibration as God and makes you forget who you are. And I think that's why people are so anxious about networking these days. And that's why I don't believe in networking, and that's why I don't network. And I do believe in just experiencing life and a means of going with the flow. No more, no less. And I think when you reach that state, oh, hold on. Gotta plug my mindset back in. Okay. When you do reach that state, it does make networking more fun. And it makes people who take networking so serious, people you don't really enjoy being around. And I'm not saying networks should just be, filled with meaningless things. But we should understand the importance and what networking actually is, and not just climbing some societal ladder. And that's why people who call it networking in that sense always seem to have a more ridged, darker view on life than people who like to just enjoy the experiences of life. And I think that's why people who are more spiritual and see themselves as spirit have more fun than people who give their power to outside sources, like the idea of networking to climb a ladder, instead of just realizing they are the ladder. And they are all directions in which that ladder can go. And then they don't take life so seriously enough to believe you have to make the right friends to enjoy life. Instead, they're able to just enjoy it as an experience instead of as an anxious person needing control of everything. And I think that's when empathy and love begins to overflow as well. And thus appreciation and enjoyment.